President Trump has pledged to permanently pause migration to the U.S. from all third world countries. It comes after authorities identified an Afghanistan national as the suspect in the shooting of two U.S. service members, killing one of them and seriously injuring the other. Joining us now to discuss is George Carrillo, former Democratic candidate for governor of Oregon, and we have Matt Klink, Republican strategist and political analyst. So first of all, thank you both for joining us today. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. And George, I'd like to start with you today. What are your thoughts on the president's position?
So first, I'll say that this is a very tragic situation with our National Guard. Being a former Marine myself, loss is always difficult. What I'll say is that, the president is right in looking at what were the vetting processes of especially this situation with this Afghan immigrant. I think having just a blanket reaction is not necessarily what's needed, but I do think that we need some further understanding of what that vetting process was like and who we currently have in the country and who we that don't belong here that are going to create harm, not just to National Guard, but to members of the community.
Let me go to you. How do you view President Trump saying that he's going to pause permanently all migration from third world countries?
I think that it's a rational and reasonable response. I mean, look, the Biden administration let 87,000 people from Afghanistan into this country with their chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, where they killed, where 13 service members were killed at Abbey Gate. They left about $800 million worth of U.S. military equipment on the ground, and they just picked up and dropped off 87,000 people with no way of knowing if these people were good people or bad people or otherwise. And I think that it makes a lot of sense. I mean, look, if you look at what the Biden administration did, is they let people in from countries where we have no ability to verify who people are. We have a lot of military-age Chinese men crossing the California border. In all likelihood, now they are lost somewhere in the interior of this country. You have gang members coming in from Colombia, like Tren de Aragua. You have people from Haiti, from Somalia, and other countries. I mean, look, if you want to come to America and you want to assimilate and be part of American society, we welcome you with open arms. But there has to be a process to determine the good people from the bad people, and we only want the good people. And Joe Biden letting in 10 plus million without any criteria whatsoever did incalculable harm to America. In fact, we saw the result of it happen on Thanksgiving with the two National Guard troops that were shot.
George, do you agree with Matt that immigrants should try to adopt and adhere to the values of the United States?
So I believe if you want to come to this country and you want to not just work here, but also become an American citizen, that you should. I mean, we're Americans. We're all proud to be American. And there is a certain culture here that you have to love this country and sacrifice much for. And many immigrants have sacrificed so many, just like dreamers who have served in our military. Myself, I was born here, but also a disabled Marine Corps veteran. So there is a certain amount. But let's also talk about the people that we're talking about, like some of the Afghan refugees. Some of them fought aside next to us. They fought with us to fight terrorism. They were translators. They were hardworking individuals and also putting their life on the line, not just for themselves, but for their family members in their villages. And one of those American promises that we made to them was that they would, when this conflict is over, that they would be able to come back. And now that the Afghan government is still a threat to the United States and to those people that served with us, our promise to them was that they would be able to come over here to the United States. Now, that whole situation in the Biden administration, I remember watching the video and us leave and seeing, people flocking to the airports, trying to get out of the country. They were starting to become accustomed to democracy. They didn't want the U.S. to leave, but it was time for us to leave. And that was, one of the downfalls of the Biden administration. We needed to have a better process. But according to the FBI and also to, the Trump administration, when previously, that this was done correctly. The vetting process was done. There's always going to be bad apples. We're not going to be able to get everybody out that we don't want in this country or that are going to do some sort of harm. That's just for anybody. You know, in our society, it's not a perfect society. People do commit crime, even for American citizens. So right now, what we have to go through is we have to look to see what did we learn from this situation and who do we know that we don't want in this country and get them out.
So Matt, could you speak to this point? You know, my previous guest was talking about this as well, that not all Afghan nationals fall under this category of this suspected shooter. But the U.S. now is pausing all immigration applications from Afghan nationals. So just talk to us about this point.
Well, I think you're talking about apples and oranges. I think that, you know, this gentleman that is alleged to have killed the two National Guard troops, he came over during the Biden administration post the chaotic withdrawal, and there was no vetting process. I respect George for his military service, but I disagree with him. There was no vetting process. They literally let people into this country that they didn't even know who they were. And that's a big problem. So I don't think there are a lot of Afghanistanis trying to immigrate to the United States right now. But look, the 9/11 Commission's recommendations said that we should limit immigration from countries that support jihad. The Biden administration canceled that from 2021 to 2025 when they held office. So we haven't even done what was a recommendation following the worst terrorist attack on U.S. soil. So pausing immigration from countries that seek to do us harm, no, it doesn't give me any great concern. In fact, it makes me feel good that the Trump administration is stepping up and looking out for the interests of American citizens first, not just opening our doors willy-nilly to immigrants who come to the U.S. and want to harm Americans.
Okay, George, if you agree that the U.S. should improve its vetting of immigrants, how does the country improve in this aspect?
So I think it's looking at the situation, even though that it is tragic, that we can't classify all individuals that come from these countries as bad people. Like I said previously, there are many good people that want to live American values, that have helped us, that have fought next to us, and we need to take that into consideration. I think reviewing our vetting process is reasonable. What I don't think is reasonable is that we permanently close our doors to immigration. We are a country built off of immigrants, and we should always continue to respect that. Again, we're never going to be this perfect society. We're not, by closing the doors doesn't mean all of a sudden that now crime is going to cease or that our law enforcement personnel are not going to get killed. This is a situation where two people were harmed and killed. And yes, it is tragic. It is part of the job. But if it wasn't an Afghani, it could have been an American citizen. We just can't look at this one situation and close the door towards all immigration. It doesn't matter whether it's under a Biden administration or a Donald Trump administration. We've got to learn from this, and we've got to improve our processes and understand that pointing the finger and blaming each other will not bring those service members back.
Matt, your view on whether closing the doors to third world countries will make the U.S. a safer place?
Look at the pattern that exists here, though. The Biden administration lets gang members from Colombia, from Trinidad into this country. They start distributing drugs and engaging in child prostitution, taking over apartment blocks. The Trump administration tries to deport these people, and the Democrats stand up not for American citizens, but for Trinidad until the Supreme Court stepped in and said, yeah, Trump can't get rid of them. And a lot of them are now sitting in jail in El Salvador. When are the Democrats going to start worrying more about American citizens and the goodwill of American citizens than allowing people? I mean, George says we need that we have a process that could improve. No. The Biden administration had no process. They just let people in willy-nilly and hope that everything would come out okay. Hope is not a strategy here. So if the pause happens and we can go and we can intelligence share with countries. We can use biometric exit strategy to ensure that we know who people are leaving, that we can verify people based on passports, that they say they are who they say that they are, and that they really want to come to this country and be a part of American society. I welcome them with open arms. But if you're going to come here and you're going to do harm, or if you're going to scam the taxpayers like what's happening in Minnesota right now with the Somali immigrants, we don't need you here. You can go back to your country.
George, your response. Well, I think when it comes to immigration and immigration policy, this is not a Biden error. This is something that the American the country has struggled with for generations. This is a can that's been kicked down the road between Republicans and Democrats. No one has had the will to be able to correct our immigration system here. And what we're faced with now is we're faced with crackdowns. We're faced with being brown in America, that it's gives reasonable suspicion for someone like me to be able to be detained, violating my constitutional rights. This is not about being Democrat or Republican. This is about being an American and understanding that people do have rights in this country, and that viewing immigrants as just these illegal, bad people that were gang members and were drug dealers is wrong. We're actually educated people that have made this country stronger and better. And creating this divide between Republicans and Democrats and immigrants versus non-immigrants doesn't necessarily make a country stronger. It only makes us weaker. It makes our economy weaker. And it opens us up to any sort of foreign attack because of the fact that we are so divided as a country.
Okay, let's wrap up this conversation. I started with George, so Matt, final thoughts.
No, look, I think that the pause is a smart thing to do. We do need a process. I have no problem with legal immigration. The problem is that we have had open borders for 4 years under Joe Biden. We likely have up to 30 million people who broke the law to come into this country, and they're here illegally, period. That's the simple fact. And if you're here illegally, you need to go home, period. Other than that, look, what's happened to the men and women, the man and the woman who were shot by the Afghan refugee, it's tragic. I think that we do need this pause to make sure that the process is in place so that people who want to do harm to this country, and if they're in this country, they need to go home very, very quickly. It didn't happen under Joe Biden. I have a lot more confidence that it will under Donald Trump. And George, happy Thanksgiving. And again, thank you for your service. Semper Fi.
Well, all right. Well said, both of you. Thank you very much for joining us today. George, Matt, thank you.